On today's starting nine, we talked to Chicago Cubs starting pitcher Jameson Taillon about his move to the NL Central, his longtime love for Wrigley Field, and how Jake one time inspired him to one day wear the uniform. Get to know the big righty, but first we have a bigger announcement. It's a bittersweet day in starting nine history, but not really that sweet at all, to be honest. We really appreciate you for tuning in today and for all the days before. Let's have a show to remember. Action! And welcome back to Starting Nine. Carl here in Chicago. My heavily bearded partner in crime, Jake Arrieta in Texas. It's thick. We talked a little bit pre-show. You go, there's not that much product in it. So, like, how much product is?
Well, there's really nothing. There's really nothing in it. No, like if I put kind of lotion on my ashy elbows in the morning, I'll rub like what's left in the beard. But I didn't do that this morning. So it's just natural. It's probably from the natural light coming in. It's making it look the way it does. Yeah, I'm letting it grow out for a while. We don't have hair, so got to take advantage of the beard.
Tactic you described is what I often do with my bald head. Lotions, ointments, moistures, anything that I can whisk away on the body, and then it just like goes right to the scalp.
Yeah, and it's something you got to worry about too. When you're bald, you got to put sunscreen on your head. I wasn't really used to that, so my fucking skull will just burn. But yeah, I'm wearing a hat most of the time, so I can avoid that. But you know with the snapback hats, you've got that little like half circle above the snap. I'll get a burn there.
Well, that's full
that's
bald.
Not a great look.
I still have coverage on the back here, pal. Don't be doing this to me.
Well, I do too. But I like to keep it at like a 1, like when I'm actually taking care of myself, and cut my hair regularly. Well, let's be honest. I mean, how often do I have to cut it? Once every 3 weeks. It's not growing very quick. But yeah, if it's down to a 1 or no guard, then yeah, I'll get burned back there. But right now, it's a mess.
But I am bearing the lead. I did not mention this in the intro. Jameson Taillon.
What a guy.
Unbelievable. He's coming on the show in a little bit. Great interview. Signed with the Cubs as a free agent, 31 years old. Talk about his experience in baseball. Great stories and just connectivity too. 2010 second overall draft pick. Just signed with the Cubs 4 years. Boatload of money. A lot of inside Chicago talk there. Locally, where to live, food recommendations, but also interesting to give recommendations on your end of, where do we party?
Yeah, sure. No,
what about getting a boat?
He's gonna be well received by the fans, and just from talking to him, good personality, good head on his shoulders. Works hard in his preparation. You can kind of hear of the evolution throughout his career from where he was as a second pick overall in 2010 to now. He's been around the game for a long time, and he's got a lot to offer, really. I mean, looking at him, some people, he's not throwing 100 miles an hour anymore. I mean, he's still got 94, 95, and I'm sure he can run it up a little more. And he kind of gets into what he's looking forward to about joining the Cubs and their ability to kind of help him kind of reharness some things that he might have had a couple years ago. So looking forward to seeing him in Chicago, man. He's gonna love that place.
Yeah, a little inside baseball there about why he picked the Cubs and what made him stand out, because so often we just boil it down to terms and, well, he wants to win a World Series or they gave him more money. But as we talked to Kevin Gossman in the year, yeah, like what the Giants brought to him was, this is very interesting. And so it's cool to get that level of, okay, that's the type of conversation that they're having. And then, yeah, some off-record stuff, like, yeah, there's other big teams in the mix for him, similar terms, and the way the Cubs distinguished themselves was through, I guess, like, be like dating a girl, and, like, sending a text message like, hope you have a nice day. Is it any overwhelming thing? It's like, no, nothing really that, like, totally dominance where it's like, well, he does this. It's just like, you're just you're just there throughout the process. We get into that story, and he's going to be part of what the Cubs are billing as like another rebuild, and they're hoping to get back to.
Yeah, and it sounded like they were a little bit more persistent and a little bit more involved than maybe some other teams, and that makes a player feel good. It makes you feel valued, makes you feel wanted. And yeah, ultimately, it could have been one of the things that helped him make his decision.
Before we get to the interview, though, and let's really bury the lead. This is my bad. I've never been good at this stuff. I'm not a natural host. Natural baseball guy, fan. I'll facilitate the conversation, but I fucked up. I should have said this at the top. We have a major announcement. There's no easy way to put this, so I will just say it bluntly. This is the last episode of Starting Nine under this format, under the iteration, of me and Jake working together. This is an abrupt announcement, and in some senses probably very surprising, especially on the heels of my announcement with Redline Radio, leaving Barstool Chicago, going down to Arizona. And it's a very long-winded answer about where Barstool's headed, internet content's headed, making content for baseball, partnering that with gaming and stuff. And Jake and I have worked very closely together. I can say confidently that I have a tremendous relationship with my co-host. I have a huge amount of respect personally. A guy I'm very close with, will stay close with. We will continue to talk, work together. There's a bunch of stuff we're going to be like. You are in my life, Jake. I want to make this clear. You're in my life.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing stuff together in the future. We don't necessarily know what that looks like yet, but we are going to adjust. And like you said, it's the format will no longer be the same. But I appreciate the kind words. I've enjoyed working with you and Colin, and have enjoyed building the relationship. Really enjoy both you guys. Love you guys. It's been fun doing this. We've learned a lot about each other, and we'll see kind of where it goes from here. But yeah, it's a sad day in a sense, but we're gonna keep moving. We're gonna keep moving along and figure some things out. And we're not.
I want to give like a very blunt, abrupt piece of credit to like us approaching this and saying, like, we know we can keep going down a path, and we're just looking at our options and like, well, what's the most sensible way to spend our time and get value out of what we're doing. And Barstool, like, I've got nothing but the best things to say about my experiences working with this company and them putting decisions together and giving us options. And if we want to go down a path in at the end of 2023, and where do you guys think you're at? And yeah, like, there's a very personal side where I'll admit that this fucking stinks, because if it were up to me, we would be doing it just hanging out, talking baseball, and everybody be showing up. And like, it's just the reality of where stuff goes and where content's going and how much things have changed in the last couple of years and the sport we're covering. So I'm giving as much context as I can, because I know a lot of people have been following this ride. And there's people listening to this that have been listening to my first podcast with Redline Radio fucking 8 baseball seasons ago. When quite honestly, dude, probably one of the biggest talking points was like your command or some shit. There I am, 6 beers deep on a Thursday night after 3 walks against the Nationals, being like, well, if Arrieta fucking... if he just centers his command and just spit. But my point when I bring this up, Jake, is that it's not analysis or insight or whatever. It's just being here and being passionate about it and telling the story. And it's fucking crazy to think that brought us together and has allowed us to build this relationship.
Yeah, and one thing I appreciate the most from you is your passion, how much you put into it, how hard you work. And it was evident to me from the very beginning that you really care. You genuinely care about what you're doing, and that's why I was all in. So thank you for that. That will always be appreciated. And but like I said, we're gonna work together. We're gonna be doing multiple things, you and I together. And hey, we experiencing failure is something that I've done my whole life. I'm sure you have too at times. Doesn't you only fail if you quit. And we ain't quitters.
And on that note, I have to get my golf game sharpened up next time we get out there. I left you on a sour note. No, I 100%, dude. Like, the idea of getting this opportunity to take over this show that had been built up for years, and when I joked around the first episode, you're like, who'd you talk to and all this stuff. I was like, why one guy and all this stuff? No, dude, like I called you. The only person I absolutely, and I've said this before, and now I sound lame, like that was it. It was just like, I would like to do the show with Jake. And that relationship goes back to when I crashed Anthony Rizzo's cancer charity cookout in December of 2000. Yep.
2014, right?
I'm like talking to Mike Olt's brother, and he's there with his wife. I'm just alone, dude. I should not have been in that room. And I look over, and you're fucking alone, double fisting beers. And the funny fucking thing about that is when we would get together a couple of years later, and we're standing at the bar, and you're like, what do you want? I'm like, hey, I'll have a Miller Lite. And you're like, yeah, I'll have a Miller Lite. Ah, fuck it. Give me a double tequila anyways. And you're standing there with 2 fucking drinks in your hand. I'm like, this son of a bitch, man. Like, every time. But I bring up the 2014 thing because we talked, and I was like, dude, congrats on the trade and all this stuff. And I remember telling you, like, I probably shouldn't be here. I'm like a free blogger for Barstool or whatever. You're like, nah, dude, fuck it. You're in the room. You belong here. And just that.
Yeah, if you're there, you're in. Yeah, well, let's we're gonna figure some things out, man. We're gonna figure some things out.
We in this positive spirit because it's like, well, this starting 9 and the starting 9 brand with this is, we are burning the whole thing down. It's like Caesar crossing the bridge or whatever. The whole thing goes. We go. The whole thing goes. So this is in effect, my understanding, the last episode of Starting 9 ever. There'll be long form baseball content, maybe, if my Arizona trip goes well. I guess. I fucking know. If you guys think I have this every announcement lined up in front of me, I'm leaving Red Line Radio, we're moving to Arizona, family's coming with, fucking whatever. We're just taking it back here. In this positive spirit, though, to demonstrate as a token of this fucking good vibes. This interview's amazing. We conducted this interview knowing this would be the last interview we're doing together right now on Starting 9.
Yeah, and it was a great one. It really was. Good way to go out.
Do you get the sentimental aspect of, like, you talking to a Cub pitcher or, like, why that's cool?
Yeah, well, I kind of relive, getting to that city, being traded, and just the experiences over the years, and knowing that he's gonna go through a lot of those same moments and same experiences. It seems like he's gonna be a part of, and we talked about it before. They're in the process of putting together a pretty damn good team. They're gonna be competitive. The trajectory can look very similar to kind of what we had going in 2014 through 2017. So, excited for him, and I know that he's in the process of beginning one of the best parts of his life, and we talked about kind of big news that happened for him just recently. So he's got a lot going for him.
Yeah, a down-to-earth, humble, but same respect, just charming young man here. Jameson Taillon. Let's get to the interview. Taillon. All right, we're now joined by JMO, Chicago Cubs starting pitcher. Welcome to the Chicago Cubs. Welcome to Starting 9. We're glad to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'm excited to be joining the Cubs and get this thing going in Arizona.
Yeah, so you're currently you're out there. You're out in Mesa or somewhere in the Scottsdale area, I'm sure. Have you been out there for a while, and how long have you been, going through your throwing progression, and what's it like right now? What's a typical day in your prep routine look like?
Yeah, so I came down to Arizona and started my lease like right after Christmas. I just figured like I've been traded once, and I've been, having to start over and meet everyone fresh, when I got traded to the Yankees, and that was a lot for me. I just showed up at spring training, and it was like my first week I was there. It was kind of just a wash of trying to get to know everyone. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a head start on this, go down to Arizona, meet a bunch of the staff, meet a bunch of the players ahead of time. So I've kind of been in and out and kind of like coming in for a few days of work, then leaving to, a wedding or wherever I have to go. But I feel like it's been pretty productive, just getting to know a couple of the catchers, a couple of the 40-man pitchers, the pitching coaches, all that. Yeah, honestly, like I'm sure you saw it as your career went on, but pitchers nowadays are taking less and less time off throwing wise. So like my first couple years in pro ball, I would take like 3 months off of throwing, and then it was like my shoulder would hurt. I would spend 2 weeks just trying to like figure out how to throw a baseball again.
100%.
So I'm like on
Yeah,
board with
man.
that. I just throw weighted balls now, and I don't really ever stop. I just keep it like pretty light. But I just threw my first bullpen the other day, and all is good.
Now, so where did that start to come from? Because I knew of a few guys like Scherzer wouldn't ever stop. Like, and I found that out. Like, he would at least play catch like once, maybe twice a week, just to keep it moving up overhead. And you're 100% right. There were years where I would take off almost until January, and when you start getting going, it's like, fuck, this thing doesn't feel right. And then there's a week or two to get it going. So. Is that something you just kind of started doing on your own, or you saw other guys doing it, you found out why, and once you started trying it, you enjoyed the way that it kind of made you feel as you start your real throwing progression?
Yeah, I'd say it was a mix. So I had always actually heard that Scherzer didn't stop. So that's one of the reasons I'm like, if he's not stopping, like, why the hell am I not stopping? Uh, so that was one of them. And then I also just like, I feel like every time I'd pick up a ball, if I took months off, like my mechanics would change and stuff. And then I would have to spend spring training just trying to get back to where I was. So I feel like just by continuing throwing and stuff, I feel like that kind of like eliminates that. Like I'm a big, tall, long levered guy, so like it's easy for me to fall out of sync. So the more I can just like get repetitions and keep the body moving, the better.
It's an interesting point in your career, I think, because with 31, 32,
31, yeah.
yeah, but like, I don't know if people know, you're going into your 14th pro season. Um, and when you bring up a guy like Scherzer, it's not crazy to say, like, you got 20, 25 professional seasons in you, almost half your life as a professional baseball player. Does it feel like you have your best days in front of you, or are you kind of, you know, where's that younger guy in the firepower? Take me through the mentality here, because again, sorry, it's so long winded, but when I think of you, you're like this surprising guy to me. You're a name. You've been around forever, but you're a fucking young guy.
Yeah, so I remember my first big league camp. I was at Stretch at Pirate City. And I remember hearing Jason Grilli say, like, this is my 12th big league camp, or like, this is my 12th spring training in pro ball. This would have been 2012. That was my first big league camp. And I was thinking, like, holy shit, this is my first big league camp. This is his 12th or whatever. And now I feel like I'm starting to. I was talking to someone at the Cubs facility the other day. I was like, yeah, this is like my 12th or 13th spring training coming up. So I don't know. It's weird how fast time goes. But I do feel like, I've definitely been in pro baseball for a while, but just with some of the injuries I've dealt with and some of the highs and the lows and everything, I do feel like I still have more to offer. And that's like honestly might be jumping ahead here, but that's really part of what turned me on to the Cubs organization was that when I met with them, they were like, dude, we still see more in the tank for you. Like we have a few things that we want to work on with you that we think could help at least take you to one level above where you're at. And I feel like it's easy in pro baseball just to be written off as you are who you are, like, hey, you're a solid innings eater with slightly above average stuff, you don't get a ton of swing and miss, whatever. And when the Cubs said, like, hey, we think with this little tweak, this pitch usage tweak, we think we could help you a little bit, that like really lined up with kind of where I'm at mentally right now.
Now, how does that? So, coming out of high school, you were drafted in 2010. I heard a lot about you. Obviously, I grew up in Dallas. I live in Austin. You're in the Woodlands, so got pretty familiar with you, and you were upper 90s into the triple digits, which is crazy. It's becoming more common now, but as you've progressed and as you've aged a little bit, and you're still young, but obviously you're not, you don't necessarily have that triple digits like you used to. Did that take some adjusting for you, like internally, like, okay, how do I still use this stuff and pitch at a high level and be dominant without 101?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. I threw a game in high school. Like, I mean, back then it wasn't even that common for like 17-year-old kids to be in the weight room a ton, especially
Yeah.
baseball players. And I had a game where I had just gotten on board with my agent. He went and saw me pitch in like Kingwood or something, and he calls me after the game. He's like, "Hey, dude, is everything all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I felt great. What's up?" He's like, "You didn't touch 95 all game." I'm like, "Oh shit, what's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, you were like 96 to 100." I'm like, I have no idea how I threw hard, that hard as a young guy. I really had no clue what
Yeah.
I was doing, but somewhere along the way, I feel like obviously as you get older, you might lose a tick or two, and then I looked at my baseball savant page last year, and my fastball velo was like 94.1, which for a starting pitcher is not bad, and I was in the 50th percentile. It's like, dude, when did this happen? But yeah, I mean, slowly, like I've just added more and more pitches. I throw a four seam, a two seam, a cutter, a curveball, a slider, a changeup, and like I feel like it's just been a slow adjustment. The game kind of lets you know, like, hey, maybe it's time to add another pitch to get lefties out because you don't throw 100 to just blow it by them or whatever. So it's been just one of those, like, every year I just tinker a little bit and try to find a new pitch or a new look to give hitters. But yeah, I mean, it's wild. You get older, you lose a tick, and then it seems like every kid coming up now sits 95 to 98 or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, do you ever you have conversations with young guys too that have that, and you're right, 94, 95, it's still nice velocity, but you can almost get too comfortable when you have that stuff that is close to 100 miles an hour and not really put enough emphasis on command. So do you? And I'm sure you've seen kids that have come up and you've tried to mentor and express the importance of commanding the strike zone and being able to pitch to the four quadrants and being able to move the ball around. Do you often have conversations with young guys like that, trying to get them a little bit less concerned about the radar gun and more about the execution of their stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line, but like kids today are so well versed on TrackMan data and their spin axis and release points, and dude, these some of these guys in the minor leagues know like their stuff plus numbers and their spin rates and swing and miss metrics and all that. So it's definitely a fine line. Like stuff for sure plays. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the best players in the game, the best pitchers in the game, like I played with Garrett Cole the last 2 years and I've known him for a long time. Like obviously he takes out every fifth day, like stuff that not everyone's blessed with. But the dude knows how to pitch, like tirelessly looking at scouting reports. Like he I mean, obviously his stuff helps him and it helps him, get away with some stuff, but like he thinks of himself as like Zach Greinke in his head. Like he thinks of himself as a command guy who just happens to have stuff. And I feel like, you watch like DeGrom, obviously blessed with great stuff, worked on his delivery, whatever, but again, like command is what separates him. He can freaking hit that glove side all day long. So, it's a mix. And I'd say for starters, it's more important than for relievers. Like relievers with those nasty metrics can just come out and blow guys away for an inning or whatever it is. But as a starter, like command's always going to be there, I think.
You talked about your different mix and kind of the extent and the depth of it. At this point in your career, you've worked with so many different catchers. So when you first meet a catcher, and now going to the Cubs, two new catchers, is there something you say ahead of time? Do you let them figure it out, or do you just we're big leaguers here, right? They'll figure it out. Or is there anything unique about it that you want to communicate to catchers?
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys, told this story at CubsCon last weekend, but Tucker Barnhart, I got engaged in Cabo last week and I was on the beach and I was just sitting there soaking it all in. Like I was drinking a margarita at, noon and Tucker Barnhart texts me and he sends a screenshot. And he's like, yo, dude, I'm doing a deep dive on you right now. Like I'm looking at all your numbers. Is there a reason why you didn't throw your curveball more to right-handed hitters? He's asking me all these questions and I just sent him a picture of my margarita on the beach. I was like, dude, we are not the same. But like for him to go out of his way in January to send me that information and to show that he already cares about me that much, that definitely starts a relationship off on the right foot. And then seeing Jan Gomes this past weekend at CubsCon too, he had some questions for me. So we're all big leaguers for sure. There's definitely some things I'll talk to them about, like, hey, I like when a catcher sets up like this versus that. I'm a super visual guy. I like to see you move to different areas in a specific way. But like when it comes to pitch usage stuff, I'll just kind of say like we'll go over hitters and we obviously do scouting reports, but you don't know how a game's going to go until you get out there and you're facing Paul Goldschmidt with the bases loaded, whatever. I usually just lean on the catchers, and if you've shown me that you're going to prepare and pour into me like that, I'm not going to shake you off much. Like I'm just going to roll with whatever you got.
And Goldschmidt grounds into a double play, by the way, in this scenario. I say.
I love that scenario.
All right.
Well, and when you have catchers that are that locked in already, which is amazing, but like the type of comfort that a starting pitcher gets, knowing that their catcher is so well prepared, it's like I would go out there, and I had like Miguel Montero, David Ross, like these guys were ultimate preparation guys. So, and I knew that whatever finger you throw down is going to work. So. And what does that do for the relationship when you're out there? It's like, hey, what do you want? Because I know if I execute what he puts down, it's probably going to get the job done.
Yep. Yeah, and if I ever shake a catcher, it's not because I have some like piece of data or information in my head. It's usually just a gut feeling. Like I feel like I can rip my curveball right now. I'm just going to rip it, even if it's the wrong pitch, and that's when I'll shake guys off. But yeah, I mean, I'm big into like if you show me that you care about me, like I'm just going to trust you and pretty much follow you.
Yeah, but there's the mystique of, you guys are thinking so far ahead. And me as a fan, you see a guy shake off and say, ooh, the cat mouse game, right? Like you're so drawn to the strategy behind it. So it's refreshing to hear like, no, dude, I just actually have a good feel. Maybe humidity today, the moisture, I got a good grip on it or something.
Yep. Yeah, that plays into it. Like even with my fastball, sometimes I'm like, I just felt like I could rip my fastball right now. I don't know. But there definitely are guys too, though, who will shake off or sequence a hitter with the third time through the lineup in mind, or what they want to do to him later. Like there's guys that think like that too, but I'd say like the majority of pitchers are just, it's a feel thing. Like I'm going to shake you off just because I felt like it was the right thing at the right time for me in my gut.
I have a couple, like there's some lighter stuff, and I know obviously Jake's got stuff. The one very serious question, I have to make this clear. This is a serious question. As a Cubs fan, diehard like Cubs guy around Barstool, whatever, when it was announced that you were signing with the Cubs, the news was I found out from the Yankees contingent at Barstool, specifically Hubs, Eric Hubs, reaches out and just singing your praise, not in no offense, not as a pitcher, as a person, and was like, whatever, like go through the numbers. I know you know baseball, but as a guy, I've been following this guy. You're gonna fucking love this guy. He's got a great attitude, all that stuff. Now, for Yankees fans, they're hard people to win over. So this is like a very long, multi-part question here. We're like, was that a good relationship with you and Yankees fans? Like, is that a fair assessment? You had a good relationship with Yankees fans. You're talking about Cubs convention. You had a smile on your face. Like, are you a guy who's like drawn to the fan aspect? Was that a positive experience with the Yankees? Or is it like, hey, you got to play the game. You're in the Bronx.
A little bit of both. I'd say, playing in the Bronx, I was a little nervous going in there. Like I was not on social media as much. I didn't put myself out there as much. But I got to be honest, like Yankees fans might get a bad rap for being tough, but like if you're honest and accountable and, you answer to the media and you go about your business, like I had zero problems. I really enjoyed my time there. It was a great working environment, great teammates. I never had a problem with the fans. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like if you have a bad game and the fans boo you, it's like, no shit. I deserve to be booed today. I sucked. Like that never got to me. And I was lucky enough to have better numbers at Yankee Stadium than on the road. Like I always pitched a little better there, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, I mean, if you want to boo me for, getting bombed, like that really doesn't bother me because I understand it. Like I'm a fan of baseball. I'm a fan of the game. I grew up going to games and stuff. Like if a guy sucked, I might let out a boo when I was a kid. So yeah, I just feel like being honest and accountable and maybe showing a little bit of your personality. And I feel like it was a pretty good relationship.
And it seems like that's a mindset that a lot of fans can't necessarily understand, but that's kind of how we operate. Like we're under the lights. Everyone's coming to watch us pitch. If we suck, we suck. Let us hear it. So yep. I feel like the majority of players are really good at understanding that.
Yeah. And if you suck one time, it doesn't mean you suck, period. It doesn't mean they're going to hate you forever. It just means like today I sucked. And I did a decent job of like compartmentalizing that. I feel like
as a fan, I will say something that catches us up is, and this is something that's been communicated to me working through the show, is like a lot of you guys don't see getting to the big leagues as the big accomplishment. it's in your head. You're like, yeah, I got drafted second overall, or was a top prospect. Of course, I'm in the big leagues, and I'm meant to be here, and I'm going to succeed here. It's going to take me some time. Where a lot of fans, guys, hey, play a little varsity ball, put cup of coffee in JUCO or whatever, like play travel. Even that's an extensive background in baseball for a lot of fans. And so just this idea of like, well, you better turn it around so you don't get sent down and the team's going to lose. And it's just this constant, like one bad thing's going to lead to another bad thing. But if you're good enough to be in the big leagues, right, my assessment as a fan is that it is with you bigger than just one bad start. You are a big leaguer once you get there. Was there a moment where it clicked for you where you're like, yo, I'm a big leaguer, I'm not a prospect anymore?
I don't know. I mean, I got called up so I got called up in Pittsburgh in 2016, and I was kind of jumping into a situation that was like the starting rotation wasn't the strongest point on the team, and there were some injuries and stuff. And so I felt like when I got called up, I wasn't like debuting for a spot. Like when I got called up, I was there to be a part of the team. So that right there, like, kind of got me off on the right foot. And a lot of guys aren't lucky enough to have that. Like a lot of guys are just pitching for their next start or their next appearance every time they're up there. So I was pretty lucky from that regard. And then I just kind of like immediately jumped in and felt a part of the rotation. Like I'm not going to say I had immediate, amazing success, but I was going 5-6 innings, most of my starts, keeping the team in the game and stuff. So, I'd say after that rookie year, I went into spring training in 2017 and I felt like, hey, it's my spot to lose. Like I'm on the team. So I'd say going into spring training and feeling like you're a big leaguer and you're in the rotation was kind of like, that was kind of my turning point. Because in the years prior, I was either showing up hurt or showing up trying to impress. I was getting the crappy spring training innings on the road, pitching in relief as a starter or whatever, as a prospect. Going into that following spring training after I debuted, I got like to start games at home. I didn't have to travel. I knew I was going to be on the team. Stuff like that kind of made me feel like I belonged.
So going to Chicago now, you're obviously familiar with the division. Pittsburgh, 4 years at the big league level. What are you most excited about? What are you looking forward to about actually getting to spend like some real time in Chicago? And with the day games, and this is what I told people, the best part about it is that you get to experience the city. It's not just all night games where you can't, you don't get to go to dinner, so you get to do that. So what are some things you're looking forward to doing in Chicago?
Yeah, there's a lot. So, I mean, as you know, like Chicago's the best city in the NL Central. And when I was playing with Pittsburgh, we used to love going to Chicago. I'm a foodie. I love going to dinners. I like making connections at dinner spots and finding my little spots. So I'm excited for that. But then, like, this is kind of cheesy, but just being at Cubs convention this past weekend and meeting all the guys and like starting those relationships and talking about what our goals are and stuff, like, just that part of it has me really fired up. Seems like a group that's excited to get to work together. A lot of new faces, and I feel like they're welcoming us, making us feel at home right away. So I'm just like excited to get into that locker room, get to know everybody, figure out what makes all the guys tick, go to team dinners, have team events, all that. I'm pretty excited for.
Did you face David Ross in 2016?
I honestly I don't remember. I feel like he caught Lester a lot, and I feel like I pitched against Lester a lot, so I'm sure I did. I know I faced him in spring training when he was like with the Red Sox way back, but I'm not sure.
I'm sure you abused him pretty good.
But you see him clearly as a manager, or is there still like, oh yeah, no, that guy's a player?
Yeah, I mean, well, I never played with him or anything, so I see him definitely as a manager. I definitely think the guys that are catchers and especially known as like defensive team first catchers, I feel like that's probably a natural transition into managing. So I feel like he was one of those guys, like even when you played against him, there was like kind of that reputation of like this dude could be a manager whenever he finishes playing. So I definitely see him like that.
I gotta know, man. So in Chicago, I lived outside the city. We had 2 kids, had a dog, so living downtown really wasn't something that would be conducive for us. But you're just recently engaged, no kids yet that I know of, or maybe that you know of. But are you a downtown guy, or are you gonna kind of you like to live a little bit further away and do it that way?
I'm definitely a downtown guy. I was one of the few guys on the Yankees that lived like in the heart of Manhattan. I was down in like the Chelsea West Village area, taking the subway to the field every day. So yeah, me and my fiance are looking at places in Chicago, just kind of throughout the city. We're still trying to decide like Gold Coast, West Loop, River North. Like we're trying to get familiar with the city and just figure out where we want to go. But yeah, we're definitely city people.
If you
Carl,
want a
help him out.
recommendation,
Yeah, help him out.
slam dunk. Been talking to you for a minute. I have a very good read on you. For purposes of recommending a neighborhood in Chicago, your West Loop, not West Town, not West Side, not your West Loop. All
Got
the
it.
fancy restaurants and shit. It's all quick walking and stuff. Doesn't matter with Wrigley. You're going to be 25 minutes from the stadium, no matter where you live, unless you live in the neighborhood next to it. And so, from the perspective of like day off or day game, you want to pop out, walk around the neighborhood, and get some good food to play. Unbelievable West Loop. And I can give you some more recommendations. JP Graziano is the number one. Gotta go to JP Graz. Okay, question now. You're moving to Chicago, though. Are you a proud Texan?
I mean, I feel like every Texan's a proud Texan, but I grew up with Canadian parents. I was born in Florida, moved to Texas when I was young. So I love Texas, but I'm not one of those guys who like goes around and says it's better than every other state or anything like that. But great place to grow up, and I mean, just an absolute baseball hotbed. I was talking about this with someone the other day. Like, I mean, Paul Goldschmidt went to my high school. I was in eighth grade when he was a senior, and once I got into high school, played against other high draft picks. Every team had major D1 college commitments. You could just roll up in the state of Texas, especially like in that Houston area at least. You could roll up on a Tuesday, see a game, and see a kid throwing 88, 90. Like you could just roll up to a random night, random stadium, and a kid's going to be throwing 88.
Yeah, no doubt.
Ask him, Jake. What did we talk about before?
So I'm trying to figure out, I got to go through the rosters, but we were trying to decide if an all Texas roster could win the World Series currently. And I'm sure it can. I don't know if I can fill the roster out with enough guys.
I think you could. I can already think of like you got Ross Stripling, you got Nathan Uvalde, you got Shelby Miller, Randall Grichuk,
Clayton Kershaw,
Paul Goldschmidt. Yeah. I would have to I guess like up the middle might be a little trickier, but I think you could put together a pretty nasty team.
Yeah, I think so. Carl, you got to have some guys that you know off the top of your head.
Yeah, I was like, for me, it's like, well, Kershaw right away. I think there were some better infielders and bigger, more like, those Texas, those good old fashioned Texas names. That one, I know I cannot pronounce this guy's last name, but he's a reliever, Corey Knebel.
Knebel.
Yeah, that dude saved like 30 games
Austin
as
guy.
a freshman.
Yep. Yeah, I played against Georgetown in high school, but yeah, I mean, like, I feel like just growing up in Texas alone put me in a spot to, like, my dad didn't know much about baseball. He learned from me, and, like, he would go practice with me and stuff, but he was a Canadian guy, hockey guy. But just being put on these, like, travel ball teams and competing against the best since you're, like, 9 or 10 years old definitely, like, kind of jump-started my career, even just at a young age.
What teams did you play with traveling growing up? Did you play with, like, the Houston Cougars at all?
I played on the Banditos.
Banditos.
And then once I got to high school, I played for Kyle Chapman, which is just one of those like premier teams similar to the Heat or Columbia Angels and all that. But we were always playing like the Dallas Tigers and the South Texas Sliders and all those teams.
Do you maintain Canadian like citizenship? Like, could you have played for Team Canada in the World Baseball Classic?
Yeah. So I did. Back in 2013, I was in AA. And I did pitch for Team Canada, and I got the start against Team USA, which was like the coolest thing ever for me. I was facing, as a AA guy, David Wright, Joe Mauer, Jimmy Rollins, like Ryan Braun. It was pretty cool. So I got asked by Canada this year, and just because of where I'm with a new team and stuff, I'm going to turn it down. But I already feel some FOMO, some fear of missing out on that. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. And, I wasn't born and raised in Canada by any means, but I still feel very connected to it. I have a lot of family up there. My parents were extremely proud when I played for them.
Yeah, Chris Robinson, was that your catcher?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
college team, not, Illinois guy, University of Illinois guy, great catcher, legendary guy. And just as an example of baseball, like Chris Robinson is a legend in the University of Illinois circle and is revered as like a big leaguer. He gets called up, plays one game. It's like basically Crash Davis's career, except
You're a
he
big
did
leaguer
get
for the
called up
rest of your life,
and he
though.
hit a home run and retired like in front of the press right after. It was like, of course, I got called up. I got my first big league game. I think it was his only plate appearance in his career. But the World Baseball Classic is coming up. I'm thinking about it because you bring up the Canadian roots and stuff. And it's funny how those can bring those relationships together. You'll see these guys that are career AAA or high A guys in some of these different countries and teams. But no, you're out this year. You're out. I want to hear that as a Cubs fan. Appreciate you for being out.
Yeah, I'm out. I want to get to know the catchers. I don't want to leave camp. I just want to start forming those relationships. But I got to go back to Chris Robinson. I don't know if you remember 2013, Canada and Mexico got in a big benches clearing brawl. I was there for that, and I think it was Chris Robinson that laid the bunt down when we were up 8 or whatever it was. I think it was him that started that.
So I cannot say with 100% certainty, but if it was good, hard play that would have gotten under somebody's skin. And the Canadians too, man, obviously tough on the ice, but also tough on the baseball field. The benches clearing brawl with a bunch of fucking Canadians is not anything I want to be a part of. So, hey,
I'm all about a good brawl, Carl.
we've been down this before. I guess I had this note. I thought it was cheeky to ask it, but I'm gonna bring it up anyways because we talked you came up in 2016. So when you got up, were there rumors of yo, Arrieta's looking for us? He killed the Pirates in 2015. So was there a thing when you played the Cubs and guys are in the dugout this fucking asshole?
No, I do remember, and I told the story when I signed with the Cubs. I remember my first time at Wrigley Field was a Friday day game in June of 2016, and you were on the mound. And I remember you had a sick walkout song, and the place was rocking. It was my first experience of the show, And I think you guys kicked our ass, or at least you did. And I thought it was cool. In the other dugout, I was like, this is what it's all about. Jake Arrieta, I think coming off a Cy Young year, shoving it against us in Wrigley Field. But I actually remember 2016, this is when I still had to work on my hitting, which I sucked at. But I was in the batting cage one time with our assistant hitting coach, and he was talking about you. He's like, dude, last year we knew we were going to get Arrieta in the wild card game the whole second half of the season. We knew how it was lining up. I was looking for tips. I was looking for patterns. He's like, I was assigned to game plan for Arrieta. I knew that's what we were getting. He's like, it didn't fucking matter. It just didn't matter. I could have found patterns, tips, didn't matter. We had no chance.
Just one of those years, man. Well, and so you mentioned that being at Wrigley and enjoying that atmosphere as a visiting player. And I've heard stories of guys, one specifically, and John Jay was saying, man, you guys kicked our ass in a series when I was with St. Louis. And just hearing the Go Cubs Go play and all the fans singing, he's like, at some point I wanted to play in Chicago, and he ended up signing the next season to be with us. So was that kind of something where you were like, man, I would like to play for the Cubs one day?
Dude, I remember, they've renovated the visiting clubhouse a good bit, but you still have to go up over the concourse. And so when you're walking up to the locker room, the whole time you're up there, you can just hear how happy the fans are, and you can hear the song playing. While your team's just quietly walking up to the locker room. So that used to really, really get under my skin, actually. But yeah, I mean, it feels like every time you're at Wrigley Field, it just feels like people are there, crossing off a bucket list item. Every single game has that, allure to it that it's just especially the day games for me, there's something special about it, but it just really feels like everyone's just there, checking off a bucket list item, happy to be there, and obviously, they're into the game and they support the team. And that was always a cool environment to play in. And that was the first thing I thought of when the Cubs showed interest. I was like, I could get to call Wrigley Field home, which is pretty sick.
Yeah. How much of a bucket list item do you think? Do you want the numbers, the data to back it up?
If you have it, sure.
Yeah, I do. It's something around 50% of attendance is there for the first time every game.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just, that was just a vibe I got. But there you go. You backed me up.
Because when people, then the thing is when you go there, and another part is Cubs fans, you may only get one game a year. A lot of people don't get any games a year, one or two, because just where it's located and all the stuff that goes in. Where do you park? How much does it cost? How long does it take? It is difficult to get to, but it's worth it when you get there, obviously. The point being, though, people may only catch one or two games. So when you go to those games, you're like, that means so much if the team wins or loses when you go to that game. So because the rest of you is like, well, they win when I went. So like, because you can only get the Saturday in June or the Thursday off in August, and especially when the team's competitive, getting tickets is impossible because all the companies buy them up, and then the sales guys and all that shit. So it is it is more unique than just because where the Yankee stuff we talked about, the fan favorite. Like, dude, I wanted to ask you, and Jake, you can read this off. We talked about getting booed already. The last fucking thing on the list I sent out before we got on here was word for word getting booed generally. And you have talked about your experiences with it. I'm here to tell you, you're not going to get booed at Wrigley. To get booed at Wrigley is, dude, you have to go to the media and like shit on the fans. You have to be the worst person for years, and then you got to be
as bad as I was a couple years ago. At the end, it can happen a little bit. Which, hey, fuck it, it's fine.
I remember thinking too, like, I think it was when you guys would warm up in the first inning. They would show like a hype video of all the guys working out in spring training, and they would every time in between innings, it's like interviewing a player and making the player look really, really good. And I remember thinking, like, dude, they do a really good job here of like marketing their players and their personalities. And I don't think a lot of other places do that. Like, other teams are kind of more like machines, and you're just buying into the brand of the team. But like, I feel like Chicago does a good job of actually like show. And there was probably helps when you have guys who are willing to like market themselves or like put themselves out there a little bit. But I always thought Chicago, like, there's just a love affair with like the players. It's obviously the Cubs and people care about the Cubs, but there's also like something they used to create, at least. I haven't played there in a while, but like that 16 through 19, like those players were just like superstar, like heroes there. And I remember sitting there also thinking like, man, these in between inning promotions and stuff are pretty cool.
Yeah, and what you'll notice too, if you haven't already from being a visiting player, is that it's one of the few. I think Fenway and Wrigley are the only two that don't put up on the board like get loud and the sound meter and all that bullshit. They don't have what they don't have to do in Chicago is coerce the fans into getting into the game, and that's one of the things I appreciated most about the fans at Wrigley.
Yeah, that's sick. That's a good fact to know.
Yeah, what they'll do is they'll just show like an old highlight. It'll say like Cub Classic moment 1983. It'll be like Ryan Sandberg hitting a fucking double or something. Next thing you know, the whole place is just going bananas, and all they had to do is just show, and they'll play dramatic music over it. I honestly thank you so much for your time. I want to give you a piece of advice, because
sure.
You are going to run with this opportunity tremendously. There's no doubt about it. The Cubs have become well known in baseball as giving pitchers that extra edge that's been documented over the last like year or two. So to hear you talk about it, it's great. I can't give you any advice on the mound. I will tell you this with Chicago people in general, right away, win everybody over. The shit you're telling me about the food stuff, like just be a food. I love the food in Chicago. I'm trying to check out Johnny's. I'm trying to get out to Gene and Jude's. I'm super pumped to go check out fill in the blank, dude. Phil's, even though it's down by, Comiskey. And I'm not saying you're going to have access to all these high-end restaurants and the new chef developing this and all this stuff. But, like, the easiest thing you can do right away when someone's interviewing, you're like, what are you most excited about in Chicago? Just be like, I heard Johnny's is sick. I got to go check out JP Graziano. And I'm not joking. This is how stupid we are. That's all it takes. And we're just like, dude, he's one of us. Like, he likes Wrigley. He's down for the cause. So that's just my one piece of it. It seems stupid. You could also pitch very well. That's the other piece of it. But if you do that, then no one gives a fuck what you eat. So
that's funny. You'll have to send me a list or something in my Twitter DMs of places I need to just recite in my first press conference in spring training or something.
Talking points. Yeah, just talking points. Like Jane Byrne traffic, glad to see that got cleared up. Stay away from, obviously, a bunch of the hot topic issues. I'll give you the advice. Okay, last question. You have to ask Jake sincerely here, get some advice here. You're going in the Cubs. You want to get this fucking thing going, and there's literally nobody who has done that better in my lifetime than the guy you're talking to. So could you mind getting some advice before we leave?
What
I'd
kind of
love to hear
advice?
it. Yeah. Give it to me.
Oh, so you're asking him to ask me a question, or
I want you to basically tell him
what to do in Chicago?
Yeah, like just,
okay.
So
Well,
we're
look,
like we're walking out here. I'm like, basically, J-Mo, I want you to be like, if you win a Cy Young, Silver Slugger.
Well, all that's easy. But look, I think one of the most enjoyable things about Chicago is just getting out in the city, like I would do on the road. You wake up fairly early, go get a coffee, and just check out the city. If you're out in like the community and walking around, and people see that. People go nuts. And what's unique about the people in Chicago is you're not. I mean, every once in a while there's an idiot that'll run up to you on FaceTime with their cousin and wanting you to have that long conversation. But majority of the people are just like subtly like, hey man, huge fan, glad to have you in Chicago. And so I would do that as much as I could every day. Is just be out in the city, get out in the community, walk around, because you'll be amazed at how many people will appreciate that. Just getting to say what's up to you is awesome. And you're going to be downtown, so that's going to happen a lot. But I highly recommend just kind of getting out on the streets, especially when the weather is nice. Just walk around and enjoy that city, man.
I got a question for a follow-up. Did you own a boat? Did you own a boat in Chicago?
I didn't, but I had 4 or 5 guys did. So it made it, I got to save money and use their boats. Rizzo had
all
one,
I've been hearing
Hayward had
since
one, Javi had one. So yeah, I don't know if there's anybody on the team that currently has one. So you might have to be that guy to get it, man. You might.
They're saying those were fun and good team bonding activities, and guys would even if you would play in Milwaukee, people would take their boats up to Milwaukee and stuff. That sounds sick.
You'll want the privacy too. I mean, there's gonna be times when you'll be like, "Oh, we just go on the boat, get the girls, nice night," or like friends come in town, and then the perspective you get from a boat is like completely different city. Like when you get on the boat, you're like, "Whoa, this is." It'll honestly, the first time don't have too much. It'll freak you out. Like if you have too many beers, you're like, "Where the fuck am I?"
Well, and here's what you can do too: is you take the boat and you can order food like at Chicago Cut or whatever, and they'll bring it down to your boat.
That's sick.
That's
doing
legit.
it right.
Yeah, so you might have to have a conversation and sell Dansby on buying the boat. He can afford.
That's a good idea. All right. He's got 7 years. I mean,
right? Yeah.
Dave Kingman, 1984, I believe, free agent, or whatever, fucking veteran on the Cubs back in the 80s, and he could be somebody other than Kingman, but I'm sure it's Dave. He lived on a houseboat, Belmont Harbor. So he would just walk down Belmont, go up to Wrigley, play, and then he lived on a houseboat in the harbor. You could just go fucking walk up to the boat, and he'd be sitting there. Hey, good game today, Dave. 1 for 4. He's sitting there having
Bronson Arroyo did that too. By the way, he's a legend.
that's unreal. I've heard he's a legend.
Yeah. Well, hey man, really appreciate you taking the time. Know you're busy. You got a lot going on in the off season. Get ready for the season. Wish you the best of luck. We'll stay in contact, and I'll get you a lot of recommendations on kind of where to visit in Chicago.
I would love it. Thanks, guys. Good talking to you.
We'll be in touch, brother. We'll talk. And that's J-Mo. Welcome to the Cubs.
J-Mo, JT. Not you don't want to call a guy by a nickname that he doesn't go by. So
okay, so that's what the Yankees guys were saying, J-Mo, but I don't know.
J-Mo.
Jameson.
Okay, well there you go. What does it say on his? Let's see on his baseball reference. Normally they have nicknames. Yeah, J-Mo. Okay. Or Jamo. J-Mo.
So maybe I did my research.
Yeah, and the pronunciation, we got it right. It's Taillon.
I did have a segment.
I've heard people say Taillon, Taillon, Taillon. We got it.
Tie off.
Now
on
the
the doors
tie's
off.
off.
Jameson's laying wood. Okay, I did write a segment that after meeting him immediately threw out. The segment is called Address Your Criticism. But it's not real criticism. It's more like stereotypical criticism. Like if someone wanted to talk shit about him at a bar and didn't really know what they were talking about, what would they say? So here's what I wrote down. I couldn't say it to his face. He's too nice. But I'm going to say it anyways because I wrote it down. His last name's hard to pronounce. Defend that.
It is.
Whole life.
It is. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Taillon or Taillon. Like that would be the confusion. Once you figure that out, you're good to go.
Criticism number 2. And I heard this before we talked to him today. If you watched on YouTube, you could see it. Struggles growing facial hair.
He had some nice facial hair though.
You thought so?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I would go all the way to say nice, but it was there. He had something. He had something working.
31-year-old professional athlete. I mean,
He had some scruff going. So I don't know. Maybe we'll ask him. We need to ask him for a picture with it growing out.
he's like a fucking junior in high school playing. In all respects, Ubers, airports. This is a tough thing. Big guy. What do you guys say about that? You're only 6'2", so you don't have to confront that problem.
No, he's a unit. I think he's probably a little taller than me, 6'5".
Dude, he's huge. He's 6'5".
6'5". He's 6'5".
That's it?
Yeah, he's got me by an inch. He does look bigger than that though.
I don't have any evidence to confirm this. This is purely speculation, but I'm comfortable with my intuition. He prefers boneless over bone-in wings.
I like them both, but I think I'd prefer bone-in all day. All day. And as I've matured, I like the flats a little bit more.
A whole lot more.
Like breaking them in half, dipping them in a little bit of ranch, and then putting them down.
Better meat. The leg is.
I think so. I think there's more meat.
Yeah.
I think there's more meat in a flat. But then you get the anomalies. You get the giant drums with excessive amount of meat. But I think consistently the flats is where it's at.
And this isn't a criticism, but while we're here, I'll offer up a best practice. I have lately been saying extra sauce, buffalo. Not the ranch or blue cheese, take or leave, I don't care. But I'm saying for the wing sauce, extra sauce, well done wing. And that's become the standard now.
Well done wing all the time. Everywhere I go, pizza. You go to good pizza spots. You shouldn't have to say that, but I can't stand when pizzas are not like crispy. It gets to the point where I won't eat as much as I wanted to because the pizza dough is not cooked well enough. So usually everywhere I go, I ask if I can get my pizza well done.
True or false? No holding back. You strike me as someone who feels guilty after eating pizza. Like still, to this day.
Depends on the time.
Fuck you, man. You got to let that go.
Depends on the time.
You got to let that go.
Well, it depends on how the diet's been lately and like when I eat it. Yeah, I mean, every once in a while. I don't feel guilty. I might like physically feel shitty. But no, I don't feel guilty. I can eat what I want. I'm a grown man.
Is there anyone other than you that can make you feel bad about yourself? So, like, say you ate too much pizza, and then like somebody literally was like, "Look at this guy." Like, are you conscious of that, or is it just total? Are you totally just one-on-one with the body stuff?
I go through phases, really. Like I typically am on like an 80-20 diet, 80% of the time eating clean or fairly clean, and then 20% it's like, look, I'm not going to worry about it. Traveling a lot, like with kids, doing sporting events, like if we need to stop and get burgers or whatever, I'm doing it.
See, I had actually like a little spell after college, and then once I started like working and you're just like in a cube or a conference room for hours a day, and then I put on weight, and then it was so awkward for me because it just in my head I was so used to being like, yeah, I squat, I run, I do all this stuff, and I was like, actually, dude, you're fucking 26 years old and you're a fucking beefy piece of shit now. So I would just admire the fact you maintain that 30 deep. That's not going anywhere.
Well, it's like been ingrained in kind of who I am since I was a kid, and it's just kind of part of the program. And I love to train. It makes me feel good.
Okay, last thing. I told you, remind me to get mad. You didn't. I reminded myself. All right. I just we had a moment with Jameson there, and it's a microcosm that I want to pass back to you and just say, dude, sometimes you just got to sit and love it and embrace it. All right. And The fact that you just fucking steamrolled his organization, you left him in shambles. He got up there in 2016 and talked about how they were in such disarray. And it was like, oh, yeah, remember that? And he told some crazy-ass story about you fucking him up. And you're like, whatever. Anyways, back to PNC Park or whatever we were transitioning back to. Now, I know why you're doing it. I know. But people listening don't. I know personally that you don't want to be associated and actively or don't want to be that guy. And you're not that guy. So I just want you to know you're not that guy. You're never going to be that guy. Don't ever be afraid to be that guy. You are never, no one's ever going to point their finger at you and be like, there goes fucking Jake again talking about 2015. And if anything, it's like, ooh, is he going about it? Because I know you don't want to be seen as that guy, which I think in turn.
I don't like the Uncle Rico guy. Like, just reliving the past. And, you know, when someone's telling a story that they tell a lot about themselves, it's like, fuck, really? Come on. All right. We've heard it before. So, Your
fastball slider combo went viral this weekend, got 2 million views. You know who throws fastball slider?
It was nice.
Fucking 150,000 pitchers right now taking the mound, throw fastball slider. Right now, active. In the history of the game, how many guys have thrown fastball slider? And your combo goes more viral than anybody else. So there is an element of like sometimes, dude, you just have, it's like me and my handsomeness or my charm. Like I just have to embrace the fact it's elite, it's world class, and people show up for it.
Yeah, I got to admit, it was good for a while. It was. I used them well.
There we go. Anyways, let me tell you something, buddy. It
Please.
has been an unbelievable experience working with you. I've learned more about Major League Baseball, baseball itself, and as we talked earlier, off record, just stuff about life. And your attitude is relentless, and I can't thank you enough for like coming into this right after retirement. And I have to say it publicly that there's really no way for me to properly explain how much I admire your willingness to jump into this. You've been an unbelievable partner and have taught me a tremendous amount about the game. And I couldn't be more thankful for the time we spent together. And I look forward to fucking stuff up with you lately. And I got to get, like I said, I got to get you back on the golf course. Done.
Oh, we're going to, and like we've talked about, we're going to continue doing something together. We don't know what it's going to look like, but the feeling's mutual. Appreciate your passion, your work, and just how you go about your business, man. Your energy level. What you bring to the table is very important, and and it means a lot to me. So we might be done with this for now, but we're going to be on to something else. I know that because I know you're not a quitter, and that's not even a word that I like to say very often. But it's tough. It's tough, but it's something we gotta roll with and figure out how to handle and decide what's going to happen next for us. And we will.
Yep. Well, I gotta say, appreciate you, brother. I love you. Thank you.
Love you too. I like, you know, when you have a good relationship with a guy, you can tell that you love him. Like it's important. So I appreciate you saying that. I love you too. I appreciate our relationship. And we're gonna keep moving. Let's keep moving on, dude. That's it. I like to work. I like struggle. I like to overcome that and move forward. You know, we're not gonna put our heads down and cry about it.
No, we're going to do what we do and get better. Win the day. And finally, thanks everybody for showing up throughout the year. And stay tuned, stick around. Baseball, an enduring game. America's pastime. We'll be here.